Hello, hello, hello. It is Friday, and we are back with Friday Friends. I have to say, if you've been thinking that you might want to join me on a Friday Friends live stream, I'm going to invite you to reach out to me and see if we can get you on the calendar. We have not had a ton of folks here, and I know we're getting into the holiday season. So things kind of slow down and maybe you have a little bit of extra time on your calendar and you'd like to join me just to kind of chit chat a little bit on Friday, that would be awesome. Because on Fridays, I love to share my friends with you, my network. I hang out with some pretty cool and awesome friends. And today is no exception. I have my friend Pam Dunwald here. Hello, Pam. How
Hello
are
there.
you?
I am great. Thanks for having me
Good.
today.
I'm
It's a
so
pleasure.
excited to have you.
It's good to be
So
here.
Pam and I have been working together. It has been like literally, it's we've got to be getting close to a year that
I
we've
think
been
so.
hanging out.
Yes.
I know, isn't that crazy? It's insane how fast time flies. Pam, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell my friends who you are.
Sure. Thanks again for having me, Nicole. It's a pleasure and it's nice to be here on a Friday. But my name is Pam Dunwald. I've been a registered nurse now for over 40 years. I just recently on Halloween retired from my hospital position. So I am full-fledged retired from the formal clocking in and out. But we have had for the last 2.5 years, we have had our nurse advocacy, our patient advocacy business. So my partner Linda and I are both, as Nicole is, board certified patient advocates. And our focus is on aging adults and their families. So our
Mm.
niche or the community that we like to serve are those adult children of aging parents and the parents. And so we've been doing that now for, like I said, for about 2.5 years. And I think one of the things that I think the story that I'd like to share about why I got into advocacy, I was not a patient advocacy when this occurred, but it was a gal from church, very active in our church, and she wasn't showing up really much anymore. And she called me
Mm.
one day and she says, Pam, she says, after church, she says, can you come over and visit? I'd like to talk to you for a little bit. I said, sure. So after church one Sunday, we went over there and she says, I suppose you're wondering why I haven't been going to church lately. And I said, yeah, but I didn't want to be intrusive and ask. And she says,
Right.
well, I've been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and I'm really afraid that when I go to church, I'm not going to remember the names of friends that I have known for years, and I find that
Um,
very embarrassing. Can you help me? And
wow.
so we sat down, and her husband, he was teary-eyed, and he said, I have one wish. He says that she stays home with me. She does not go in a nursing home, and that's all I ask. And I said, well, I said, to be honest with you, that's probably going to be a bit challenging down the road. He says, I don't care what it costs me. I don't care what it takes.
Mm.
Promise me that you'll keep her home. And I said, I will promise you that I will do my utmost very best and to try and keep that promise. And with Alzheimer's, it could be a long haul, it could be a short haul.
Right.
And with her, it was less than a year from the time she contacted me to the time she passed away. And so it was
Wow.
it was very
That's
quick. And
fast.
we so we had to do she had behavior issues. She was
Mm.
ingesting all kinds of things, shampoo,
Oh.
cleaners. So we had locks on the inside of the windows, doors. We had baby locks on all the cabinets. Um, it just, I mean, it was probably one of the worst cases of Alzheimer's that I'd
Mm.
ever had. And what she didn't know is that her brother, they kept it from her. Her husband knew, but he was real worried because her brother had Alzheimer's and he had committed suicide during
Mm.
his with his
Oh my
dementia. And so
gosh. Wow.
oftentimes she would talk
So
about that. And we ended up having 24/7 caregivers in the home. I mean, it was it was costing him, I mean, around $2,500 a week to keep
Wow.
caregivers in the home, 24/7. And it was
Yeah.
hard. I mean, I can remember one night I got a call at midnight and the caregiver's calling, can you please, can you please come over? And she was beating her
Oh
with a
my
cane.
gosh.
She was beating the
Oh my
caregiver with a cane.
goodness.
And so went over there, and it was funny
Wow.
because if I read to her out of the Bible, we would read Psalms. That was the only thing that would
Mm.
calm her, and this peace would just come over her face.
Wow.
She would calm down, and she literally was scared. I mean, they get paranoid. One
Yeah.
minute, her husband was lovey-dovey with her, and the next minute, he was a stranger that was trying to kill her.
Oh
And
my
it
gosh.
was it was so hard. And I still think that her husband died of a broken heart. He had no issues that we knew of, and he ended up passing away before she did. All of a sudden, he just
No.
declined. Yes, and
Wow.
not quite sure what he didn't have. They didn't have an autopsy, but we had hospice in there. And
Right.
then after he passed, she did end up in a nursing home. But we kept her home
Mhm.
with him as long as he was there. And it
Long
was
as yeah.
and and it was at that moment I said, you know what? I says, this was really, really hard, but you know what? It felt really, really good to be able to help, them be able to cope and deal with that and keep her at home. And so that was like the kind of case that led me to patient advocacy. So
Yeah. So after you worked with them, kind of walk with us. Like, so after that, did you start to explore what patient advocacy might look like? Um, kind of, did you like what happened then? Like, okay, you've decided like, oh, this is something that I really appreciated doing, right? Helping this family, as hard as it is, right? That it felt personally gratifying, and is that what inspired you to kind of explore what that would look like as an independent advocate? Um, and
yeah,
is that how you found the board, the certification board, and that kind of
yeah,
stuff?
yeah. One of the other things that prompted me to, and why this case was so passionate for me, is that they lost their adult daughter several years ago and became guardians of their two grandchildren. Now,
Mm,
these two grandchildren at the time this was going on were both in their early 20s. And so now they were becoming
mm,
the caregiver for their grandparents. And my
grandparent.
heart just went out to these two
Oh,
kids. And I'm like, I thought
yeah.
about other families and other situations. And, I knew I was going to be retiring in the next few years. I'm not
Yeah.
one to sit by. I can't sit still. I have to be busy. And I thought, I've tried many other different things and side hustles. And, I says,
Mm,
you know what? Why not take my skills, my 40 years of nursing, take my skills I've learned and turn it, take that passion and turn it into something that I can do once I retire. So I
there
started
you
looking
go.
at the patient advocacy. And then I have a friend that I've worked with for over 30 years, and we're both in the same bucket, as far as our age and looking at retirement. And we decided, we started looking into patient advocacy, and then we said, well, you know what, if we're going to do this, then we want to do it all the way. And so that's how we
Ooh,
started looking into the board certification and um,
nice.
started studying, took the test and all that. So
Yeah.
that's how that all got started.
This friend is Linda, right? That's
Yes,
how you guys get
yes, yes.
into, and it's your nurse advocate consultants. Tell us a little bit about what you do with there
Um,
as a company.
Yeah, so we formed Your Nurse Advocate Consulting, and again, we officially opened the doors by with a book. Both Linda and I have a background in hospice and home health. Hospice is something that we're very, very passionate about, and what we've learned through the years is that so many people are afraid of hospice. They
Right.
think that hospice is your last couple of days get hospice and that, but and people don't realize they worry about the morphine, they worry about when they're not eating and drinking. And so we, to open up our business and kind of share with the world, here we come, so to speak, is we wrote a
Love
book
it.
called Cracking the Hospice Code: Your Nurse Advocates
Oh,
Debunk the Top 10 Misconceptions of Hospice. So
I love that.
uh So it's not a textbook. I mean, we do talk about how it gets paid for and that it's a Medicare benefit. We go into a little bit of that,
Sure.
but half the book is addressing the 10 misconceptions. And the other half of the book is just stories that families had given us permission to share their stories. So there were real stories, real names, real
Love
patients
it.
that we've worked with, uh, just all the experience they've had, all the ways that hospice can help them, all the things that they go through during that last journey, what to expect, and so it's hopefully, it is a book that will help alleviate some fears and just look at some of the good things that hospice can do.
I didn't expect this to kind of go into hospice, but I'll tell you, I did a stint with hospice as well in my previous life, and I have to say that is a really special journey to work with folks in the hospice realm, especially you hit this on the head. I think that if more families read your book and understood the services that are actually available through hospice, because there are so many great benefits to utilizing hospice services for the support team, the family,
Mhm.
not just the patient, but the family
Right.
as well. That work was some of the most personally satisfying work I've ever done. Is when I worked with the hospice team. I was in the billing department, but I'll tell you, as a team, we worked to help our patients and their families do things and get last wishes granted. And the one that sticks out in my mind was we had a young mother whose daughter was a senior in high school, and she wasn't going to make it to spring commencement.
Mhm.
And so we worked with this school, the community school board, and we actually were able to have a mock graduation ceremony at the patient's home so that she could be present when pomp and circumstance played and her daughter walked. And, it was a wonderful experience. Very sad, but very, very fulfilling. So, give the name of that book one more time so
Yeah,
that, folks
sure.
can get that information.
It's available on Amazon, and it's Cracking the Hospice Code. And then Your Nurse Advocates Debunk the Top 10 Misconceptions of Hospice. But yeah, it's available on
Cracking the
Amazon.
Hospice Code.
And it's,
Love
yeah,
that.
Pam and Linda and I wrote that book. And, Nicole, that story you just gave, that's a perfect example of the amazing things that hospice can do. And
Yes,
oftentimes you can't pull those things, you can't make those things
that's
happen,
right.
without a
Yeah,
team. And so
that's
I
right.
think, I've had hospice patients on board for, over a year, and
Yeah,
we were able to do a lot of good things in that amount of time. So, yeah, we just want to, um, address all those fear and concerns. And a lot of people,
right.
I think their fears come up because a lot of people don't understand the dying process, that the body actually goes
Right.
through a process. And I think once people understand that process, they understand more about what's happening and that it's normal.
Right.
And
Right.
but yeah, so that's
I love it.
what we do. We started with that, and then March of 21 is when we opened the doors to advocacy.
Love it.
And you know, I think one of our most recent success stories about I love what we do is I got a call from a woman who had reached out to the Aging and Disability Resource Center in a neighboring
Yeah.
county. She's about 2 hours from here, and she went to them for help, and literally what they did is they gave her a booklet of all the resources in the area, and she literally started going down the list, calling people. I was one of
Wow.
two people that called her back within 24 hours.
Oh
And
my
here was this
gosh.
gal, they're in their 80s. Her husband has Alzheimer's, so he has
Oh,
dementia. He is homebound now. His legs are too weak. She won't let him leave. She doesn't feel comfortable taking him
oh,
out of the home anymore. So
yeah.
she can't get him to the doctor. She can't leave. She can't go grocery shopping.
Oh,
They have no family in the area that can help. Uh,
oh my gosh.
she says, I want him to get a flu shot, but I can't get him to the doctor. Pam, how can you help me? And I said,
Oh,
you
wow.
bet. I said, you bet we can help you. And so it just took a couple of days, and we, because of the dementia, we got him with palliative care. We found a palliative care agency in their area that the nurse practitioners would come to the home versus them having to
Oh,
go.
wow. Nice.
Yes, we found an in-home palliative care. So he was now going to have a nurse practitioner come to the home. He didn't have to go to the doctor. We got a non-medical personal care agency coming in. So 4 hours every other week, she's now getting out. She's going shopping.
Nice.
She's had lunch with a sister and a niece. And then I called the health department. And it was funny because, mind you, this is 2 hours away, and the nurse at the health department was a nurse that I ended up precepting in a hospital here where I worked. So it was nice. I got
Nice.
I got to
Yeah.
speak with a familiar voice, familiar person, and she was able to, as the public health nurse for Eau Claire County, she was able to go to the house and give him his flu shot. So we checked off all the boxes. She's now
Yay.
we have like a monthly service. Like once, in this case, once we perform, certain tasks or put plan together, then they have an option to stay on board with us monthly, and we do a couple of check-in calls, and then we have a resource hub where we have lots of things that for them, and so they've transitioned into that monthly client now, and
Love it.
so yeah, it's so awesome when things like that come together. So
It is. It really is. Well, this has been great, Pam. I know we had some scheduling issues, so it's been a long time coming for us to actually get live. We originally had some tech issues and that kind of thing. So I'm so glad that we were finally able to get together and do this live. Listen, if folks want to connect with you after this, where is the best place for them to do that? How would they connect with you?
well, there's a couple different places. And Nicole, do we have time for me just to talk about the directory real quick for a sec?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Go
I just,
ahead. Do
I
that
just,
first. Yeah.
yep. I just want to say real quick is one of my give backs is, you know, I have a healthcare professional director. It's not just advocates, but it's healthcare professionals that offer services that maybe a lot of people don't know about. So we have music therapy. We have a non-contact boxing coach for Parkinson's disease. Nicole is a part of, that for billing.
Yeah.
So we have some advocates. We
Yeah.
are always looking for healthcare professionals. It's a free listing. It's a directory that's sorted by categories, and I invite anyone to come and take a look to see if that might be something that you'd want to share your services with. You just have to be some kind of healthcare service or business. And so that is patientadvocatematch.com. And you can, there's contact information there. You could reach out. My email address, my personal one, I usually like to give out because it's the easiest. It's on my phone and I get it quick. So it's just P Dunwald, DUNWALD at outlook.com. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me. And I check that thing constantly. So, but yeah, so if you're interested in maybe seeing what the directory is all about, and then yournurseadvocateconsulting.com is our website for our services. But yeah, my personal emails, for anyone to communicate with me is usually best.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much for hanging out with me and sharing your story. I appreciate that. And I know that my network appreciates that. So if you're interested in learning more about Pam, the work that she does, or any of the other healthcare services on the directory, because like I said, if you work with caregivers or families, or you are a caregiver, or you have an aging loved one and you're looking for resources, I'm telling you that directory is a great place to go and get to know some amazing folks for sure.
Absolutely.
So
Thank you.
thanks, Pam. All
All
right,
right.
guys, we will be back with another Friday Friends next Friday. See you next
Thank
week.
you.
Bye,
Take
guys.
care.